Well, hello, fellow champions. It's me, Johnny, the champion within, coming to you today with another video. Today is a special day. I have another guest with me today. This is Brian Nowicki. His YouTube channel is at Wikivore, and he goes by Wick Goes Carnivore. Brian's been a carnivore for, I think, around 8 months, actually, maybe over a year. I'll let him tell the story. But he and I have one thing in common. Well, probably a lot of things in common, but one thing in particular is a history of atrial fibrillation. That's a little heart electrical defect where your heart gets out of sync and it beats too fast and then too slow and then too fast. And so Brian has used the carnivore diet working with his cardiologist, and he's got some good news on that front. But I'll let him tell you about all that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my friend, Brian Nowicki.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good, Brian. How are you tonight?
I am good.
Yeah. Just tell us about yourself. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and how you came to need and then find the carnivore diet.
Okay. So I live in Virginia in the United States, and I've been living there for, I guess, 17 years now, I believe it is. Most of that time period, I was quite a bit overweight and had some health issues. And actually, in 2018 is when I got diagnosed with A-fib. And I know you already talked a little bit about that, but for me, it started kind of slowly. 2018, I had my first episode, and then it took close to a year, probably a little less than a year, for the next one. And my cardiologist said it would continually get worse over time, which it did. It got to the point that going into 2022, I was having episodes all the time. I would have like a couple episodes a week, as a matter of fact. Um, Even going back to 2021, there was one time when I could not get out of the episode on my own, and they had to shock my heart back into rhythm in the hospital. That's when they actually put me on blood thinner and beta blocker medication for the AFib. So 2022 timeframe, like in the spring timeframe, I was pretty overweight, didn't have a lot of energy, um, kind of had mild depression, had a lot of back pain, arthritis in my big toes, a lot of joint pain. My knees, my ankles would swell up at different times. And especially my ankles, like my foot would swell up, and I couldn't really walk for like a week or two at a time when that would happen. So I had a lot of those issues. The AFib was getting worse. Like I said, it was a couple episodes a week that was happening. And I knew some people that were doing keto and they were having success with it. So in the spring of 2022, I decided to try keto. And while I tried keto, I was continuing to do research on like YouTube and just other places on the web. Um, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Sean Baker, Professor Bart K, people like that. I was watching a lot of their videos and listening to the science side of carnivore and so forth. And I decided that carnivore was the best option for me. So I went to carnivore in July of 2022. And at that point, I had lost just a little bit of weight with keto, but I didn't really see a whole lot of difference, like with my AFib or like joint pain and that kind of stuff, right? I'd say within the first few weeks, I started to notice the difference on the joint pain and arthritis and so forth. Back pain was gone, that kind of thing. And probably within the first month or two, I noticed that I wasn't having AFib episodes anymore. And so that was in July that I started of 2022. So I am now at 16 months on the carnivore diet. In that time period, I've lost over 80 pounds. But the big thing for me has been all the health related stuff. I haven't had another AFib episode since. So I'm at like 14, 15 months, somewhere in there, without an AFib episode. I don't have the joint pain. I don't have the arthritis. I don't have back pain. My mood is better. I have more energy. I feel like going out and doing things. I don't have the mild depression anymore that I used to have. So all those things have improved. The big thing that's more recently happened for me is that I went back to the cardiologist just last week, and he's been really happy with my progress, with the weight that I've lost, and just the fact that I haven't been having the A-fib episodes and so forth. And he went ahead and said that my risk of going into A-fib and my risk of stroke has gone down enough that he was comfortable with taking me off the medication. So I'm no longer on the blood thinner and so forth. And I still have blood pressure medication that I'm taking. My blood pressure is pretty good. It's lower than what it used to be, but it's not like it's really low to where I feel like I could go off of that medication. But I no longer have the AFib medication and the blood thinner and so forth. So that's pretty good news for me. Um, and really, the carnivore diet has just been life changing for me. As somebody that has had AFib, just the fact that when you have AFib, it can be so debilitating because you really worry about doing certain things that you might go into an episode, or then your heart rate might get too high, and just different things with it, like with being on a blood thinner, for instance. You worry about just cutting yourself and bleeding too much. So it's just life changing for me that I no longer had these episodes. I was able to get off the blood thinner, and it's just amazing, really.
Wow. Well, how old are you, Brian?
I am 49
Okay.
years old.
Wow. And what in your mind, the very first episode of AFib you had, what did you think was going on?
So the very first time it happened, um, I was actually coaching youth football, and we had it was at the beginning of the season, and we had like a skills thing that was supposed to happen that evening. And I was at work, and noticed that I didn't feel really well. So when I got home, I checked my blood pressure, and my heart rate was high. Blood pressure was up a little bit, but the heart rate was high, and it was coming up as an irregular heartbeat. And every time I checked it, it kept, it was irregular. There were times that my heart rate was going up to like 150 or something, and I was just sitting there. So, I told my wife, I'm not really sure what's going on. I've never seen this before. Um, the funny thing is, at that point, I didn't feel my heart beating, like like sometimes you can feel like just how much it's beating in your chest. I didn't feel that, but I knew something just wasn't right. So we went to the ER, and that they ran a test, and noticed that, yeah, I was in AFib. So that's how I found out that that's what it was. In that particular time, they admitted me, but I got out of AFib on my own that evening, and then the next morning they let me go home. And of course, I followed up with the cardiologist and all that stuff. Um, I would say after the second or third time I had it got to the point that I could tell when it was happening, because I could start to feel the beating in the chest. The other thing that I noticed was I could notice myself, just I was more fatigued, more tired when I was in AFib. So those are the big things, I guess, that I could tell and feel that I was in AFib.
So when you first went to the ER and then you met with a cardiologist, I assume probably pretty quickly after that, did anyone mention your diet or anything about any kind of dietary changes that might help with this? Or was it just medication and follow up like that?
So what the cardiologist actually said was no sodium, no alcohol, and you should lose some weight. And that was it. Didn't really tell me, how I should lose weight, but that's always the first thing, is the no sodium thing, right? They say that sodium causes your blood pressure to go up and so forth, and I've actually found that to be just the opposite. But Um, so yeah, that was it. And he really said, like, you should lose some weight. That'll help, but you really can't. That there's not really a good way to stop AFib. You can get to a point that we maybe do an ablation where we try and burn out the spots that the electrical signals are, um, getting confused, and so that could potentially help, but it could come back from that, and they didn't know if they could, get it all right doing that. But that, there was never that you could stop eating sugar and stuff like that, and that would take care of your problem. I didn't know that really until I saw a video from um, Dr. Ken Berry that talked about the vagus nerve, I guess that's up here, and how that can trigger when you're eating too much sugar, that can trigger signals to your heart to have you go into AFib. Um, that's the first time I ever heard about that, like having anything to do with sugar or your diet or so forth. And I started doing more research on YouTube, and I found a cardiologist out of somewhere in England, I think, or something like that, that was saying the same thing. Like, I've treated so many AFib patients with their diet, with reducing carbs and sugar and so forth, and their episodes are minimal, or they don't even have episodes anymore. But my cardiologist had never said anything about that. And he basically said that it wasn't possible, through eating. So,
Well, my experience was, I don't know if you know this, but I spent most of my adult life as a paramedic. So I studied cardiology, I studied anatomy and physiology, pharmacology. So the first episode I had was, only lasted a few seconds, but I immediately knew what it was. And I knew because of my training and education that one episode leads to another episode. Eventually, they get more often and they last for longer. And then you can go into what's called pretty much permanent AFib. So I ignored it. I knew my blood pressure was really high. I had high blood pressure for years. And even with blood pressure medication, my blood pressure never really came down to normal. So I quit taking it because I was tired of paying a copay for medication that wasn't really helping. I was morbidly obese, 300 plus pounds, eat up with arthritis, high blood pressure, had all that going on. And I'd actually gotten out of EMS. I quit working on an ambulance because I was too unhealthy to do the job. The ambulance service basically fired me because I simply couldn't do the job with my weight, my immobility, my arthritis. So I left the ambulance business, if you will, and became a truck driver because I still needed to feed my family. I needed a job, but I was so unhealthy I couldn't work in a factory. I couldn't do anything like that. I couldn't stand for that long a period of time. So I got a job as a truck driver, and I drove a truck for about 7 years, and that kind of made the situation worse because now I'm extremely inactive. Although I'm making money, feeding my family, my health continued to deteriorate. Well, as a truck driver, you have to have a physical every year. The Department of Transportation requires that you go see a doctor every year and get a physical. Well, in 2021, I was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I was headed back to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live, to do my annual DOT physical. And I went into A-fib about halfway here, and it just never went away. I was in A-fib the entire time. And I started feeling extremely weak, got very winded. Anything I did made me so out of breath I couldn't hardly catch my breath. So I come home, I go straight to the emergency room. Well, I went in my pickup truck, obviously, to the emergency room, and walking from the parking lot inside the emergency room was the single hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I was trying so hard not to pass out. I was so weak and winded. And when I got inside and they put me on the EKG machine, my heart rate was 260. So I was barely conscious. They got me in there, gave me some medication, kind of got me straightened out for the day, and sent me home. I went back in a few days later and they did the cardio version, like you talked about, where they shock your heart, and they were able to get my heart back in a normal rhythm. But it only lasted a week. And then so I went back in, they did it again, and it lasted a day. And during this whole time, I'm not working. Well, I had bought my own trucking company. So I had, very, very large bills due every Friday. If I was paying for a truck, paying for the insurance, paying for all the licenses and everything, and I had no way to make any money. So I ended up having to sell my truck and my trucking company. And that sent me into deep depression because I'm no longer a paramedic. I no longer have my trucking company. I have all these health problems, and I'm 54 years old. What am I going to do? I mean, where is this going to lead to? So, having the ablation, the doctor went in and did the ablation, and it seemed like it was pretty successful. I was in at 6 in the morning, and at 3 o'clock that afternoon, I was at home. Because of COVID, they didn't want anybody spending the night in the hospital. So they got me in and got me out in the same day. And I've not really had many episodes between then and now, but went into deep depression, just didn't want to do anything. When I sold my trucking company, I had a little bit of extra money that I could kind of live off for a while I figured out what was next. And ended up catching one of Carrie Mann, Homestead How, catching his video about his 30 days on carnivore. And I decided right then that I was going to do it. Started July 1st. And just to wrap this all up, between July 1st and now, no more high blood pressure, no more diabetes, no more arthritis pain, no more depression. It's like I'm a completely different person. But the A-fib was probably a wake-up call, and I guess I'm glad now that it happened because it got me to where I'm at now. But losing my job twice and losing my business was devastating. So when you said on your video a couple of days ago when I watched and you said, it seems like you've really put this thing into remission, I literally cried because I'm so happy that you didn't go through some of the challenges that I went through because the A-fib wasn't able to get put under control, and it really put me in a different place financially and a different place from a standpoint of depression. But now I'm good. I did have one pretty severe episode once I started carnivore. About a month in, I got to where I was doing push-ups every night, every night. So one day I decided to see if I could do 30, good solid push-ups without stopping. At about 27 or 28, I was straining really hard. And I put myself back into an A-fib episode that lasted about 5 minutes. But eventually it went away. And between then and now, I've had 0 episodes. So I'm really blessed about that. And I don't push myself quite that hard right now, because I don't want to do that again. But I'll work up to those 30 push-ups. I'm pretty close. I can do 25 pretty easy, but I'll get there as I lose more weight and continue to do the carnivore diet. So
Yeah,
other than
that's
the
awesome.
AFib, you said you had arthritis as well, and you had some back pain. And what was your life like between the time, say, maybe when you first had your first episode of AFib to
Mhm.
now? Tell me about what your life was like on a day-to-day basis then versus what your life is like today on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so I guess it depended if I was having issues with my arthritis or joint pain swelling up. Um, so like when that happens, like my foot, let's say one of my feet would swell up, and so I had well, first of all, I had confirmed arthritis in my big toes. But I also had issues with my ankles. Like if I just go and walk a little bit more than normal, I most likely would end up within a couple of days having a swell up on one of my feet. And when that happens, I would be probably a week to 2 weeks where I'm, hauled up on like a couch or a recliner with my foot up or something, trying to ice my foot, use different painkillers and so forth. And can't really move around to do anything when that happens. Um, but the other thing that was really happening was I kind of had mild depression and didn't really feel like doing anything. So outside of working, a lot of times I would just sit on the couch and I'd watch TV or I'd be playing video games or something. My wife would ask if I wanted to go out with her, like she was going shopping or something. I'd be like, no, I'm just going to stay here. Just never wanted to do anything. And pretty quickly into carnivore, that kind of thing kind of changed. Um, I I had more energy and I actually felt like going out and doing things. Um, So, it was even to the point of where probably a few months into Carnivore, I started asking her sometimes in the evening after work, like, hey, do you want to go out and do something? And the first few times she'd be like, well, what are you talking about? Like, you never want to do anything. So that was always kind of funny. But yeah, it completely changed it, right? Like, I was just this person that it kind of seemed, and I know this kind of sounds bad, but it just kind of seemed like I was a person that was just sitting there waiting to die, like for life to end, because I was just sitting there all the time and not doing anything, not wanting to do anything, wasn't happy, um, just sitting there. And now it's completely different. And another thing is like most years we go to the Smoky Mountains and do some hiking and that kind of stuff there. And every year, like I will either skip some of the hikes or I'll start off and then I stop and I'm like, you guys can just go on without me. And I go back to the car or whatever. And I have issues if I did do some of the hikes where my ankles would start swelling up. And this year we went in July, so I had been carnivore for about a year at this point, and it was the difference was just amazing. We hiked pretty much the entire week, like every day. Um, there were some, 4 or 5 mile hikes that I did, some that were considered like moderate to hard hikes. And most of the time, I didn't even need to stop for a break or anything. In fact, like I was doing better than my wife was at the hikes, which was completely just a complete difference, complete turnaround for me. And for me, like it at the last time that I was able to hike like that and feel like that would have been the first time that we went to the Smoky Mountains, which was the year after we got married. So I was 24 years old at that point. So this was like 25 years later. And, now 25 years later, I feel like and can hike like I did when I was 24 years old. Whereas for the last several years, like I was just miserable with it. I liked going to the Smoky Mountains, but I didn't really like doing the hikes type of thing there. Um, so it's been a complete turnaround for me. And the other thing is like I didn't even have to worry about okay if I push myself too far, am I going to go into an A-fib episode? Because I knew I hadn't been in A-fib in like almost a year at that point. Um, so I didn't really have that to worry about either. So it's just been complete, you know, a complete life changing thing to be eating this way on a carnivore diet and feel so much better.
Is it safe to say you feel like you've got your life back, that your life was basically put on hold for many years, and now you've been given a gift of your life back?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And so that's the interesting thing. It's like when I really decided that I needed to do something back in like late spring of 2022. Um, I think that it's important for people that are going to stick with something like this to have a real good reason, like a why. It's not just that, okay, I want to lose weight, but there has to be a good why. And for me, I looked at things and I said, I don't know how much longer I'm going to live if I keep doing this. And I want to watch my kids grow up. I want to see them have kids of their own. I want to be a grandfather. I want to be able to provide for my family and my wife. So that's been my why ever since. Um, and, you know, a year and a half ago, I really wasn't sure how things were going to be going over the next few years for me. And now, like, it's just completely different. It, it, it's definitely, I definitely feel like I've got my life back and feel like all of those things that are my why are definitely in my control now.
So I know you and your family recently went to Myrtle Beach. How was that trip?
Yeah, it was good. So my daughter, my youngest daughter, is a freshman at Coastal Carolina University, which is down in Myrtle Beach. So we were actually down there visiting her, and that weekend was parents' weekend and that kind of thing. So we were down there, and we actually got an Airbnb on the ocean front. So that was nice. It was actually warm, pretty warm that week. It was, 70s to even low 80s throughout the week. So got to be on the beach a lot, got to do a lot of walking on the beach. Um, and it's a beach tourist area. So they have a lot of like seafood buffets and stuff like that. And a couple of times during the week, we went to a buffet where you basically get all you can eat crab legs, and they have other stuff in there as well. But basically, for me, I had the crab legs and the prime rib. And obviously, other people that aren't doing carnivore are over there eating like the mashed potatoes and whatever else they got out there. I don't know. But I filled up on meat like that. That was for me. That was a carnivore's dream to go to a buffet like that where you can eat all the prime rib that you want, all the crab legs that you want. If you wanted shrimp, you could have the shrimp that you wanted. So that was great for me. That was a great weekend, and that weekend we got to go, that Saturday we got to go to the football game. So we got to see them play and they won their game. So that was pretty cool. So it was a really great weekend.
So I guess where I'm going with this is, had you not found the carnivore diet, you probably still would have went to your parents' day or whatever to see your daughter. What would that vacation have been like? How different would it have been had you not found this way of eating versus the time that you had now that you're carnivore?
Yeah. So, well, the first thing is I probably would have complained about just about everything all week long because I wasn't a happy person back then. Yeah. Um, I definitely wouldn't have been doing some of the walking that we did. Like, we walked up and down the beach and stuff, and I would have been like, no, I'm just going to sit here in the sand or something instead. Anything I could have done to be less active, I would have been doing, right? Um, and definitely at the buffets, I wouldn't have just had crab legs and prime rib. I would have ate some of the other stuff. And you know how it is when you eat carbs. If you remember when you used to eat a lot of carbs, if you ate too much, you always felt horrible. You felt miserable for like the next day or something, right? I would have done that, and then that would have made me feel even worse. So it would have been like just a snowball effect of things. But that that brings up another key point for me that I guess I didn't mention before, is that um, I always seem to be, well, of course I said that I wasn't happy, but I would always seem to be irritated with things and so forth. And I get angry sometimes, right? And now that I'm carnivore, I'm a much calmer person and I don't seem to get irritated with things as much. I'm happier and so forth. So it would have been a completely different trip back then before I was carnivore compared to where it is now.
So
And I wouldn't have been
I
smiling as
think,
much.
Drew, I think that for me, and it sounds like for you as well, the carnivore diet has not been just a gift to you, but to your wife, your children, probably your coworkers, just anybody that interacts with you. It's benefited from you going on the carnivore diet. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, I would definitely say so. Um, I mean, I feel like, you know, as my kids were younger, um, I might not have been as happy of a person, and there were times that maybe I didn't want to do something that they would have wanted to do. There were obviously times that I would go and do those things, but didn't necessarily want to do those things, right? And now they're a little bit older, so I kind of miss that I missed some of that time that I just didn't want to do things that I would now want to do. So I did kind of miss that I missed some of that time. But definitely, especially for like my wife, it's definitely different because we are doing more things than we used to do. We go out and do things a lot more often than we used to. And the other thing is that I would sit there a lot of times and play video games or something. And I still play video games a little bit, but it's not like I used to. And so, there's more communication with us and talking and stuff like that that wasn't necessarily happening before because I wasn't very happy and talkative and want to talk about stuff and so forth, you know? So, yeah.
So speaking of your wife, is she doing carnivore? Is she doing any low carb or carnivore?
No, she's not. She's talked a little bit about doing low carb. So first of all, when I first said I was going to do carnivore, she was kind of hesitant about it. She was like, you can do what you think you want to do, but I'm not really sold on it. I'm not sure it's a good idea, and I don't want you to, have a heart attack from it or something like that. But as I lost weight, and as she saw my blood results come in and my blood work was getting better and better, like for instance, before carnivore, my triglycerides were 273. They're now 107. My HDL
Wow.
was under 40. It's over 40 now. So, just different things like that. Um, she kind of warmed up more to it. And she's like, yeah, first, like I would tell her, well, this they say that red meat causes this problem or causes that, but in reality, if you really look into things and research, that's not true, right? It's really the sugar that's the problem and so forth, and the seed oils and that vegetable oils. And she didn't really want to believe me at first, but as she saw the results, she was like, yeah, I guess that, we've been wrong for so many years. They've been telling us the wrong thing and so forth. And it looks like it really is the fact.
Yeah.
And she's talked a little bit about potentially doing some low carb, but she hasn't really gone into it. But she's not in the same situation I was.
Right.
She's not as big as I was or anything like that, and doesn't have that kind of depression or the pain that I have. Like she'll have some back pain sometimes here and there, but she didn't have like arthritis or any of the joint pain and stuff like that I had. She didn't have like A-fib or any of those types of issues. Um, so it's probably a little bit harder for her to really think about doing something like that when she doesn't experience some of those same things that I did, right? Like probably the same for you, For us, we were looking for ways to improve ourselves, but if you don't really feel that bad to begin with, it's a little bit harder to get somebody to change what they're doing, right? With their diet and so forth.
Right. Yeah. Same situation I'm in. My wife, she's not on board with this for her. I think she's starting to open up to it more because she sees how more active I am, how much happier I am. I'm doing more stuff around the house, and I think she really likes that. But she doesn't have doing great, and she doesn't eat a carnivore diet, but she doesn't have all the maladies that I've had. I've lived with for years. And so, during October, I think you were involved a little bit in the October Step Challenge. I know you think you had some technology issues or whatever that kept you from maybe getting the steps you wanted. Well, I won that thing by 80,000 steps. And I got addicted to walking. I just fell in love with moving. I, uh, I'm at the point now, and this has really been true for probably 2 months. I feel compelled to get up and move. I simply can't just sit around. I have to move. It's like something inside of me is making me get up and move. Well, I came home one day. I've been out walking, and my wife was sitting down, and I came in and said, "Hey, you want to walk around the block with me?" And she said, "Sure." And she changed her shoes and she went around the block with me. And we were going to do just the short block, but we ended up going the entire block around the big part of the neighborhood. And it was awesome. It was amazing that she and I could get out and do that and do it together. It was just heaven. I was so glad that she did it with me. And I was glad that I was able to do it with her. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that is something that happens, like you start to get the energy back and you just want to go out and do stuff. That's stuff that I've experienced too. Now I'm not as big of a walker, and I think even if I didn't have those technology issues, I probably would have came in last place with the walking because with the steps in October, just because I'm not as big into walking as I should be, I guess. Um, but yeah, the steps you had, I saw the final numbers, man. You knocked it out of the park. That was great. So congratulations for the
For
steps
for
you
me, it
did
was
that
actually
month.
pretty easy. I do enjoy walking, in the area that I live in near Charlotte, North Carolina, there's a ton of like county parks, and they all have like a walking trail that kind of threads through all of them. It's called the Carolina Thread Trail, so all the parks have a portion of it. And I just love walking outdoors. We've had some really great weather over the month of October. It was unseasonably warm. It was just great. And I was able to listen to a lot of carnivore podcasts and watch a lot of YouTube carnivore content while I was walking. So I was killing two birds with one stone, getting in some good content and getting those steps in. So it was really nice. So Brian, what do you think about going forward? Do you think you'll maybe join a gym or start working out? Is that part of your plan, maybe to get more activity, or just maybe continue to do those mountain hikes? What do you see your life looking like going forward from a movement standpoint?
Yeah, so I had more gym equipment at my home probably like the first, I would say, 8 to 10 months or so on Carnivore. I had a pretty good setup in my garage. My son recently moved out and took some of that equipment, so I still have some things, but I don't have a lot. So I don't know if I will just try and get more equipment here at home to do, or if I'm gonna, look to go to a gym or something. I don't know, but I do want to get into working out more than what I've been. I was doing it a little bit more, probably in like really the springtime, early 2023 here. Probably for a good 3, 4 months or so, I was working out a little bit more than what I've been doing here now. So I do want to get back into doing that. And for me, you know, I love going to the Smoky Mountains, so that's something that I like to do. If we can do that once a year at least, and do those hikes. There's some hiking that I can do here where I live in Virginia, but it's not like mountains or anything. So it's not really hiking, I guess. It'd be more like walking, like different trails, paths, and so forth. There's a couple waterfalls that there'd be like a little bit of hike, but it's not like real mountain hiking or anything like that. So there's stuff like that that I can do. But yeah, I mean, I know that being active is key. And the people that you see that are older, that are in really good health, are active. So it's something I want to make sure I stay up with. And I think with eating this way, it's going to help me to be able to do that. So I don't have any plans to change from the way I'm eating. I might tweak the way I do things here and there, but I'm going to continue to eat this way and want to try and stay as active as I can so that I can stay as healthy as I can for as long as I can.
So I have 7 grandkids. I know you say one day you want grandkids. And by eating the way you're doing and being as healthy as you're being and getting some movement in there, when those grandkids get where they're ready to play with grandpa, you'll be right there with them. They'll have to keep up with you instead of you keeping up with them. And that's pretty exciting to think about.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny because just earlier today, I was actually on the floor playing with a dog. So that's something like a year and a half ago I wouldn't be doing. I'd be too sore to get on the
That's
floor
cool.
and then try and get up and so forth. So yeah, that's definitely something I look forward to when we have grandkids.
All right. So switching gears here just a little bit. I know that you and your partner over there do the Thursday night football thing. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I think Greg reached out to me, and so I had kind of been doing a little bit of a YouTube channel before where it was more like sports related, and I was just showing sports clips and that kind of stuff. Completely different YouTube channel that I don't even really go with anymore because I've pretty much been dedicated to just doing the carnivore thing and getting my story out there and sharing my experiences and so forth. But anyway, Greg reached out to me and he's like, "Hey, I know that you were doing this before," and he's like, "I'm kind of into sports and stuff. What do you think about doing a show where we talked about the upcoming NFL season and we kind of did like our picks for the season and that kind of stuff?" So I was like, "Yeah, let's do that." So we did that, and we thought it went fairly well. So from there, we were like, well, let's try doing like a Thursday night thing. during one of these, the NFL streams that's on Amazon, the Amazon stream, right? Let's just try and do like our own live stream during it. And we did it, and we're like, yeah, this is kind of cool. It worked pretty well, so let's do it again. And it just kind of blossomed into something that we're doing all the time now. And it's funny because I don't think that we even planned that we were gonna do it like throughout the whole game. We're then like, yeah, let's go on for like an hour or something and see how it goes and go from there. And we found that it was kind of fun, and we could bring in multiple guests throughout the time period so that people didn't have to be on all, for the entire stream and so forth. And um, it's just been really fun doing it. So we've been continuing to do it, and we have, certain people that they just like, they're there every week, commenting in the chat and so forth. And so it's been really fun, really great.
So who's in the lead now? Whose team is doing better, yours or Greg's?
Well, I think the Lions are up by like a game or a game and a half right now on the Vikings. So my team is up in the standings, but I don't know. I think it's going to be a battle all throughout the year. So we'll see. I think they play each other twice in the last 3 games of the season, so that we probably won't know who's going to win that division until the end of that span at the end of the year.
How did you come to pick Detroit? Are you from Michigan, or are you just like that team? How did you pick them?
So I was born in Toledo, Ohio, which is right on the Ohio-Michigan state line in Ohio. And I grew up there. And
Yeah,
then when I got married, I lived just across the state line into Michigan. So I've always been, in terms of professional sports, I've been a Detroit fan. Detroit Pistons for basketball, Detroit Red Wings for hockey, Detroit Lions for football, Detroit Tigers for baseball, you name it. So I've always been a Detroit fan. And I lived out there until I think it was like 2007 when we moved out to Virginia. I
sure.
moved out here for work. So I just, kept those teams as the teams that I follow.
That's cool. I was actually born in Traverse City, Michigan, but we moved south when I was about 6 years old. Uh, so I used to like Detroit. I was always a big Dallas Cowboys fan. Roger Staubach, Danny White, that time frame, and then I kind of fell away from football. And we moved to Charlotte. My wife and I moved to Charlotte in 2003, and I don't remember what year it was, but the Carolina Panthers, went to the Super Bowl that year. The whole halftime kerfuffle with Janet Jackson. The Carolina Panthers were there, and I'm here to tell you, this place was lit up in blue and black. I mean, it was amazing. And then now being a Carolina Panthers fan, you have to wear a bag over your head. They're really struggling here lately. It's tough. It's tough to get involved in love and watch it because they're just not doing well. I hope they can get it turned around, but so far it's always there's always next year.
Yeah, that's how it's been as a Detroit Lions fan. They've never played in the Super Bowl, so they finally have a good team this year. So we'll see how they do. I expect them
Well,
to make the playoffs at least, and we'll see from there. So, but yeah, they've never played in a Super Bowl. So,
oh yeah, well, well, we've played in two and lost. Well, Brian, what else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to tell my audience? Talk about anything you have
um,
questions for me or anything?
yeah. So let's see. So you started in July, I believe you said, or August? August, right? You started on the carnivore diet.
July 1st.
Okay. And so let me ask you, did you have issues like with joint pain or arthritis or anything like that? And if you did, how quickly did you notice a difference in that?
You broke up a little bit, but I think you said, how soon did I notice a difference in how
Yeah.
I felt? So yeah, I started July 1st, and I went cold turkey. I went from the standard American diet on June 30th to full carnivore on July 1. Um, so I had some stomach issues over those first 2 weeks, but I had some really bad arthritis pain in my right hip and in my left knee. Then I had some type of unknown pain in the top of my left foot that just hurt all the time. It was really miserable. And within 3 weeks, all that pain was almost completely gone. and within a month it was all gone. So that was an amazingly fast turnaround. I work at Lowe's. I work in the paint department at Lowe's. Prices got so high, the corporate office said we could work 5 8-hour shifts, or we could work 4 10-hour shifts. That way we don't have to drive, one day less a week we'd have to drive to work. Well, I opted for the 4 10-hour shifts. So I'm on that concrete floor for 10 hours. I actually work 11 hours, but we get an hour off for lunch, so it's 10 hours. And prior to starting Carnivore, by the end of the 10th hour, my feet would just be on fire. They would hurt so bad that I would almost have to crawl to my car. I'd always park really close to the building because I knew that at the end of the shift, it'd be tough to walk out to my car. And now that I'm Carnivore, and this happened probably within 6 weeks, my feet don't feel any different at the end of the 10-hour shift than they do at the beginning. I don't have any foot pain, no back pain, 15 years, and nothing hurts
That
ever.
is just amazing. And so you and I both have similar experiences that we had pain for several years, and within weeks to the first month or two on the carnivore diet, that pain was gone. And I think that's one of the key things that I would tell people that are watching this video. Like, if you're kind of still on the fence about carnivore, you're looking into things and you're watching this video and you have different types of pain, arthritis or autoimmune issues, whatever, um, give carnivore a shot. 30 to 60 days. If you really try carnivore for 30 to 60 days, I can just about guarantee you that you're going to feel so much better that you're not going to want to stop doing it. And, we are two people that are sharing our experiences, and they have perfect examples of how carnivore can just turn around your life. So, definitely, if you're thinking about it and you're not really sure, just give it a try. You really have nothing to lose because you're already feeling bad, right? So give it a try. And again, go at least 30 to 60 days. You got to get past that first couple of weeks because the first couple of weeks can be rough. Um, Depending on what is happening in your body, you might have some oxalate dumping or something like that, or also, just transitioning to a different diet. You might run into issues with loose stools and so forth. So you got to get past that. But you get to that 30, 60 days, and you're going to find that your life is so much better that you're not going to want to turn around. You're going to want to stay on carnivore. And that's really what I would want to get out the message, to people is, look at the two of us. We're perfect examples of how you can change your life around.
Cool, cool. Well, I do have one question for you, if I may. So I started on July 1st, and so now I'm 100. I think 130 days today, 129 or 130 days today. You've been going at this a good bit longer than I have. Do you still see improvements? Are you still having improvements? I sometimes get worried that I'm as good as it's going to get, but it would be great because I'm 1,000 times better than I was on June 30th. But I still hope that I can get more just more benefits from this. Do you still see, or how long did you continue to see benefits into the journey, or do you still see benefits?
Yeah, so I still have a good amount of body fat that I still need to lose. So I'm still seeing that. My waist is still changing, so there's those kinds of things that are happening. Um, I'm not really I don't really have any pain, like joint pain and arthritis and stuff like that, like I used to have. I don't, really have like the back pain and that. So those kinds of things aren't, I don't really notice them. What I might notice is if I eat something that I shouldn't, depending on what it is, it might be something that triggers me. So like peanut butter, for instance, will trigger my wrists to start hurting, like it'll get sore, and it'll do that for like a day or so. And I've heard that peanut butter is high in oxalates, so it could be that that's causing that. So there's certain things that I found that I need to kind of stay away from, right? Um, But in terms of like pain and stuff like that, I don't really have any of it anymore. I feel so much younger. I mean, like it. I'm gonna be 50 here in 2 months, and I don't feel anywhere near what I would think a 50-year-old would feel like. I feel so much better now, and that wasn't the case a year and a half ago. Um, so there's definitely those things. Um, there's one other thing I would say, and that would be, of course, I talked about the body fat, that I still need to lose some body fat, but I think that for me at least, the more active I get, the better I feel, and the more active I want to be. So that's something that continues to get better, I think. So I think you will notice that as you continue to go, you're going to feel even more energized and want to be even more active than what you are now. At least that, what I see. So I think you'll probably see the same thing there. But yeah, I think that's probably, sums things up pretty good.
All right. Well, cool beans. Well, Brian, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been great. You've brought some insight to my audience that even though our stories are similar, you bring a different perspective. A little bit younger guy than me, but the good news is when you get 56 years old, I mean, think about how amazing your life will be now versus had you not found carnivore and you turned 56. I turned 55 in a state of misery. I'm going to turn 57 in a state of pure joy and happiness. I mean, that's just my take on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on the channel. It was great talking to you, and I really hope that our conversation is going to help some of your audience.
All right, Brian. Well, man, I appreciate it. I know it's getting kind of late here. It's 8:40 or whatever. We've been going for well, actually, it's 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. We've been going for about 55 minutes, and it felt like 5 minutes, man. This is awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. And so people can just go to, is it at Wikivore? Is that how they
Yeah,
find you on YouTube?
at
Just type in the
Wicavore.
search
Yep.
bar at Wikivore.
Yep.
Okay, cool beans, cool beans. Well, I got it rolling on the bottom of the screen there. Hopefully, some people that watch me, if they're not subscribed to you, they'll jump on there right away and subscribe to your channel and get to enjoy your content as well as I do because I love your content. You are one of my probably one and two right there. I love you guys to death. Not a huge football fan these days, but I'm a huge fan of you and Greg, and so I appreciate you guys doing the Thursday night thing. I watch. I don't maybe watch all of it, but I watch as much as I can because I'm finding that I'm watching so much carnivore content that the wife's forgetting what I look
Yeah.
like.
All right. Thank you.
All right, all
All
right,
right.
take care. We'll see
Bye.
you next time.